For as long as I can remember, I have suffered from thinking too much about things that absolutely and undeniably do not matter. Like, for example, why do I turn down the radio when I'm parallel parking? Or why do I smile politely at lawyers on billboards? Or why did no one correct my rampant misuse of the word mortified for all those years? I thought it meant scared to death. Small, dumb, irrelevant, often totally imagined things. And in the rare event that I arrive at answers to any of these dumb, totally meaningless questions, like, for example, how the hell did they cast Jake Gyllenhaal as the Prince of Persia? I can't believe they pulled it off. I find the answers are not satisfying. Like, somehow they don't matter at all. And yet, what does matter? This thought often follows the more benign question. I ask myself something about Jake Gyllenhaal. I toil over it for a little bit. Maybe I arrive at something like an answer. And then I say, you know what, actually, that doesn't matter. But then a little voice in my head whispers, okay, but what does matter? Every day, I labor under two primary mysteries. They are what matters and am I doing this right? I would say these are probably the two fundamental mysteries of life, both of which I do my best to not really over-engage with because they make me feel kind of sick to really consider. And yet what makes them ultimately very mysterious to me is that no matter what, my mind drifts back to them all fucking day long. Like, no matter how much I beg it to stop, I find myself going, does this matter? We, if you guys will do me the honor of speaking for you, spend the majority of our lives maintaining an ever-changing list of things that matter to us. Things about ourselves, things we like or don't like, things we view and judge in others, stories we like to tell, things we refuse to eat. All those little things that, when shoddily strung together, make the strange little thing we call personality. And yet, our minds can't help but try to look beyond these lists, these important little things. It says, no, of course I accept that all of my local experiences are very important. I love my wife, my kids, my job, my hobbies, my list. But then the camera of my focus juts back, and then it goes back even farther and goes, okay, well, let's get to the heart of what matters. What do these things matter from the more distant perspective? What is my place in the history of history, and does that even fucking matter? What is my place in this universe that I understand to be quite massive? And can that possibly matter? Or the last question is, what is the context of something mattering? So my mind starts spinning, trying to resolve this. It says, the importance of human history is actually probably pretty overblown. We've been around for 100,000 years, and the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. It says dinosaurs were around for 220 million years, just fucking walking around and shit. It says it is very likely that human history is mostly just a testament to one species' ability to ruin a planet that far predates them. And guys, we're fucking doing it. And as far as the universal scale goes, do you guys remember that James Webb Space Telescope pictures that came out a few years ago? Do you remember these? The ones that shows the visible universe in the most detail we've ever seen, showing billions and billions of stars we're supposed to sort of comprehend are actually whole massive galaxies. These images are like my own personal obelisk from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Randomly throughout the day, I'll get a sudden snapshot of one of these images and I'll shudder. I'll remember facts like in the viewable universe, there are 300 galaxies for every person currently living on Earth. That's 300 galaxies for each of the 8.1 billion people on Earth. What the fuck are you talking about? Or that the nearest galaxy to ours is 2.5 million light years away. That's 2.5 million years traveling at the speed of light. Or the fact that there are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. Grains of sand. It's also completely psychotic and so mind-crushingly unfathomable to me that at a certain point, the brain just begs you to stop asking. It just says, stop thinking about it. All the while, I feel very aware that the suggestion of my thoughts is that obviously nothing matters. But I'm not satisfied with that. Satisfied or not, I'll be sitting there in the chair at my dentist's office, and he'll be asking me if I'm still into whatever dumb thing we briefly talked about 6 months earlier. And I'm nodding my head, and I'm trying to speak in the intervals where his tools are not in my mouth. And I feel the little drool dripping out of the corners of my lips, and out of nowhere I'll be visited by the James Webb images. And suddenly I'm trying to get the doctor to inject the lidocaine directly into my brain. And yet I also have to live a life where I tell myself that it matters that I'm trying to make people in my life happy, or that it matters that I simply enjoy myself. I literally can't believe how much I'm sweating. And I must tell myself this while also privately accepting every day. I'm wearing a t-shirt under this. What the fuck am I thinking? Every day, the absolute absurdity of living at all in a vast universe in which everything is literally flying away from everything else. Space is expanding into space that did not exist until the expansion required it. What the knee-jerk thought in our lives and our thought in our is that our lives and our histories matter because of a grand narrative that makes some kind of logical sense, that everything we're all doing is going towards something. But this is unsatisfying and seems to break down the more you think about it. Who is reading this history? What does its narrative cohesion matter? And then the inverse question is also very odd and unsatisfying. What does it matter that the universe is so vast? Why does it matter that we're so small? The scale of everything is so massive and so strange and unknowable that it actually shouldn't diminish our sense of meaning because the two things almost don't touch. The scale only matters because it's at odds with all of these narratives we've been fed by the human culture and its need to directly engage with concepts like God and eternity, which tend to insist that the scale is somehow regarding us, following along with our narrative or paying attention to our thoughts. The way these fundamental mysteries work, and mind you, I am someone who literally does not know or understand anything, is that you must reach a point in the investigation, for me every day, where you go, you know what, actually, fuck it, who fucking knows? I don't know anything, I don't want to think about this anymore. And I do think it's very good to convince yourself of the importance of certain things that feel good, like being kind to people or being present or hating people who are racist or sending memes or watching your show. We can say, okay, so in the grandest scheme of things, it would definitely be just aspirational to be a speck of dust in the universe. But while I'm alive, it just feels good to be kind and loving and try to do some version of the right thing. But then this leads me to my other daily mystery. Am I doing this right? Or to be more annoyingly Socratic, what is right? Am I living well? Am I treating others well? Am I learning meaningful lessons? And I actually think the answer to these questions is yes. Not to brag, but I'm actually a pretty good person. No, I'm just kidding. I try to be a pretty good person. I suck. But I do try to make other people feel happy and valued, and I even make a point of regularly admitting when I'm wrong. This is easy because I'm often wrong about almost everything. I once, in front of a big group of people, said that The Shining was great because it's so mortifying. Okay, but so what is right? There are whole schools of philosophy. I know there are some philosophy people here tonight. We got virtue, ethics, utilitarianism, consequentialism, deontology, all of which I know, and I mean this, literally nothing about. They're all exploring the idea of right and wrong, and I'm pretty sure, no offense, they have not solved it. But I would like to believe that most people think right is whatever hurts the fewest people or helps the most. I'm more of a language guy than a philosophy guy, so please indulge me. Have you guys ever heard people say that something or someone is chomping at the bit? I love it. Very, very visual phrase. You picture a shark going ham on ham or something, on like a hook, you know, or maybe you picture a horse with that thing in its mouth. And other language nerds will say that the horse is actually where this visual metaphor was popularized. And the real language nerds will know that the right phrase is actually champing at the bit, which I guess is what a horse is doing, and the thing in the mouth is the bit or something. I'm really not a horse guy, but horse people and language people will agree it should be champing. But the vast majority of people say what feels more natural, which is chomping at the bit. And this incorrect usage far exceeds the correct one. Years ago, I actually got into a Twitter spat with the writer of Clueless over this. Back when Twitter was a place where you have like lighthearted spats with the writers of classic movies where rich girls want to hook up with their stepbrothers. But anyway, I looked this up in a great reference book called Garner's Modern English Usage. Highly recommend picking this book up, guys. It's really good. In which the origin of the phrase is confirmed, and the ratio of incorrect to correct usage is listed at 20-1 in favor of chomping. So chomping is considered right despite it being provably wrong because more people say the wrong one than the right one. This is not unlike the tragedy I'm sure a lot of you guys remember that happened with literally and its actual antonym figuratively becoming listed as a synonym. As a longtime language nerd, I feel this kind of thing is extremely disturbing, but is very helpful in the discussion of right and wrong. So you're saying if enough people are wrong, they're right. Apply this same ratio thinking to history. Consider all the unbelievable, let's call them missteps of the human species. They thought it was right to cure an illness by letting out the blood. They were letting it out. That's what bloodletting is. They're like, fucking, we need to let some of this blood out of there. They thought dousing themselves in vinegar and praying would protect them from the Black Death. They thought that the shape of the skull indicated something about the intelligence of the person. They thought the sun revolved around the sun. They read religious texts literally, obviously should be read figuratively, even though they're synonyms. They thought it was right that some families had a divine right to rule the rest of us. They thought it was right to justify genocide as a means of civilizing a population they knew nothing about. The history of human atrocities, which seems to be pretty endless, is a history of people believing they're doing it right. And we sit at this inflection point of history right now, and we want to believe if we had been alive then, we would have held the beliefs of right and wrong that we currently hold, as if we're somehow not influenced by the time and the world around us. Yet time and time again, we find that right and wrong are defined by the ratio of people who agree with one side over the other. So how do we determine if we're living our lives right, if we're doing anything right? We return again to our lists, the things we like, the things we believe in, the ways we wish to be perceived. We return to popular wisdom about kindness as a virtue. We put stock in ideas like legacy, awards. We put one foot in front of the next and march hopefully toward a future we must convince ourselves will be good, culminating in a life that we hope will be seen as right and meaningful. But still the feeling nags, right? Like we want more, something more than the desperate feeling of hope. Now, as you might assume by my tone and my general vibe, that I'm not a very spiritual person. But occasionally, I do go through a period of time where I seek out alternatives to my cold, unsatisfying little disposition. And recently, I stumbled upon this incredible ancient Tao philosopher named Zhuangzi. You guys heard of this guy? He's fucking great. He's truly great. I highly recommend checking him out, which I'm sure he'd really appreciate me saying. He was alive 2,000 years ago. Zhuangzi sought to live in harmony with the world around him and believed that he found the way to do so. He asked the question, what if the limits I accept in my life are just habits of thought? What if I am making the limits real just by believing in them? He believed that in order to wander freely in life, which he thought was like the ultimate goal, you need to loosen your grip on the mysteries of life, on believing that there even is a mystery. He insisted that people must try to wander beyond the restrictions they've put on themselves and on the world around them. I think his most famous musing, and he's one of these philosophers who's like really famous for his musings, had to do with a dream he'd had. He dreamt that he was a butterfly. As a butterfly, he flew joyfully through the air and felt a profound and wordless peace. He had no memory at all of ever having been a man, and the dream seemed to last a lifetime. When he awoke, he was not sure. Was he, Zhuangzi, dreaming that he was a butterfly, or was he a butterfly now dreaming that he is a man? Zhuangzi lived 2,000 years ago, as I mentioned, but doesn't that sound like the first stone thought ever recorded? I absolutely love it. What resonates with me about this anecdote and with Zhuangzi's broader point of view is the implication that the mysteries of life come more than anything from our desperate clinging to fixed distinctions. Whether he is a butterfly dreaming that he is a man or a man dreaming he is a butterfly is not a mystery. Interrogating the distinction cannot matter. And doesn't it sound freeing to live your life believing it is the dream of a butterfly? I definitely think so. Our insistence that it is one or the other confines us so much more than we want to be confined. But we become slaves to our mysteries, our desire for objective distinctions or a perspective that never changes. The need for satisfaction becomes a kind of restriction. Why must we be bothered by any of these things? There's no difference between the dream and reality when you're in the dream. So I think that the trap is clinging to the idea that certain things are mysteries and certain things are not, which I'm sorry for everybody else has to read your mystery thing, and I'm going like, this is actually what they are. By clinging to these distinctions, we're clinging to the mystery. We're tricked by the feeling that everything must adhere to dependable shapes and that these shapes will always hold. The antidote to many of the daily mysteries, and again, I am someone who literally does not know anything, and I suffer from these and 1,000 more mysteries every single day, is the hard job of accepting that the literal is also the figurative, that we are champing and we are chomping at the bit. Accepting that the whole thing, the broad narrative and the local one, are actually quite gray. They're blended. They're just one thing. They're events unfolding with trillions of contradicting points of views at speeds and on scales that are simply impossible for us to comprehend. Accepting that everything matters and that, of course, nothing does. Accepting that we understand everything and we, of course, understand nothing. Accepting that we are doing everything right because there is no right. Accepting that it is not about satisfaction. Dream the dream. Live the life. Enjoy the show. And tonight, when I go to sleep, I'll ask myself, did this reading matter? Did I do it right? I can't believe how much I'm sweating. And if I'm lucky, I will drift off into my real life as a butterfly. Thank you.